Hi friends, how are you doing? I hope well. So in today's video, we will talk about Flexbox. So in recent times, Flexbox has really gained popularity, and the main idea behind this Flex layout is to give the container this ability to alter the children's width and height in order to best utilize the available space of the parent container. All right. So we will see what all parameters can be set at parent level, that means at container level, and what all parameters can be set at child level. Okay, so without wasting further time, let's jump straight into coding right away. Okay, so here we have code, and here I have this structure of this um, folder. So I have got two files, index.html and style.css. I'll minimize this. So in index.html file, I have a very basic HTML, no big deal. I have one parent div element, and within that element, I have a bunch of div elements at child level. So each of these children div elements have been assigned with some child class, and this parent container, the div element has been decorated with this fb container class. Okay, so as of now, this fb container and rest of the child classes are empty. We will fill in with specific properties within these classes, just to demonstrate what this flexbox can offer. Okay, I have also set up this live server on this code. You can actually check it out. This is a very interesting extension that is available. So I have started that live server extension, and it's listening on port number 5500. And if I can bring it up, so as of now it shows the HTML this way. So the beauty of this extension is that it I don't have to keep on refreshing this browser. The moment I make any changes on this HTML or CSS and then save it, it automatically reflects the same on this browser. Okay, so I will resize both these windows side by side so that we can see clearly what's going on. So in the CSS, I have a very basic thing, just to neutralize the effect of general padding and margin that any browser applies. I have nullified the effect by applying some margin and padding as 0 at all the elements. Okay. Now, to set any controller as flexbox, we need to set the display property as flex. Okay. The moment I set the display property as flex, you can see here all the elements which were stacked vertically until now got stacked horizontally. Okay, so I will come to it, why it is so. So before that, let me assign some background color to each of these elements. Okay, so first I will set the background color as black on the parent element, that means the container element, and on child I will assign some random colors. So for example, tomato here, uh, green here, maybe yellow here on the third element. On fourth, let's say what, maroon. All right, on the fifth element, let's say teal. On the sixth element, let's say gray. On the seventh one, let's say violet. On the third last one, let's say what, maybe aqua. I'll save it. Now you can see here all the child element elements have got its background color, and all the elements are stacked up horizontally side by side. Now we will set the direction. Okay, before that I will set the wrap property, flex wrap as wrap. The moment I specify the wrap property, what it is doing is it is honoring the width of individual elements, and if those elements cannot be adjusted on one line, it is moving them vertically, right? Now if I go full screen on this one, you can see on first line it can accommodate 3 elements. So it is doing that. It's stacking up everything horizontally. But if there is no sufficient space, it is moving the next elements, pushing down vertically, right? So that is the essence of Flexbox. So I don't have to think about the orientation of layer or the layout on the child element. Now, what are the options that we can set at parent level? So before that, let's do some changes here, some basic changes. I will assign some width as let's say 100 pixel. I will assign some random stuff here quickly, just to give a feel that how uh, heterogeneous element are going to get laid out. Okay. All right, and I will set the height property for all the elements as fit content. All right, okay, and let's add some padding here, maybe 10 pixel, and margin as 10 pixel, right? Also, let's set text align as justify, just to look things a bit more organized. Okay. Now, if we specify this flex wrap property as reverse wrap reverse, you will notice that everything gets laid out in a reverse direction. Okay, from bottom to top. It is also impacted by the setting on direction. If I make this column, okay, here we have got two concepts. All right, first is your major axis. Now if my flex direction is row, that means things are going to get laid out from left to right. All right, from left to right. That means this x-axis is my major axis and this y-axis is my minor axis. Similarly, if I make this direction as column, then things all the child elements are getting laid out from top to bottom. So my major axis would be y-axis and my minor axis or cross axis would be my x-axis. So this is a very important concept to keep in mind, because most of the alignment properties are in relation to your major and minor axis, and major and minor axis itself changes based on your flex direction. So to keep things simple, I will keep this flex direction as rho, that means your major axis is your x-axis and your cross-axis is your y-axis. Now I will also specify the flex wrap property as wrap. As of now, by default, it's no wrap. Okay, so if it is wrap, then the browser respects the width of individual child elements. Otherwise, if the wrap property is no wrap, then browser will not respect the width and everything gets laid out in one single row or column depending upon your flex direction. Alright, now the interesting thing is you can define both these attributes in one single property like flex flow. Flex Flex flow is your say row and then wrap. It gives the same effect. Alright. Now let's talk about the alignments of your children element. So the first thing is now if you notice here, when the child elements are laid out, depending upon whether it is able to fit the next element or not, it moves the next element to uh, it is actually pushing it down because it is not able to fit this third element in this space. Now this space is actually left empty. Now we can decide whether this free space can be at left or right. In other words, how these elements are going to be laid out, whether at left or right, is defined by this property justification. So I can say justify content as flex end. If I do that, all the elements will be right justified horizontally. Okay. Now, so this justify content controls the alignment on major axis. That means if my flex direction is column and if my justify content is flex end, that means it is impacting your vertical alignment. Okay, so always keep in mind when I say justify content or align content, it impacts your major axis and cross axis. Okay, so I will keep the direction as row. Okay, now let's say let's okay. Now first let's set the height property as 100 VH on the parent. Okay, that means parent will occupy 100% of the viewport of this browser. Okay, as soon as I make it 100 VH, you can see that the space in between the elements got increased automatically. Now let's say I don't want this space to be distributed against this element. I want all the space to be stacked at top. That means, in other words, I want all the elements to be pushed down and bottom. To do that, I will specify align content as flex end. So all the elements are getting stacked at the bottom and the top of the screen is actually left. The free space is pushed down at the top. In other words, all the elements are getting laid out at bottom. Now if I make it start, everything gets stacked up at the top and the free space would be at the bottom. Now there are two interesting properties, that is your space around and space between and space around. Now if I specify space around, that means the free space would be equally distributed between these elements and at the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen. So you will see some space left at very bottom of the screen and at the top of the screen. Now if I make it uh, space between, then those spaces are gone. The space that you are seeing here is actually the margin. I have already set on each of these children the margin as 10 pixel. Okay, these 10 pixel is left here. All right, so that's about your align content. Now if you have noticed in one now uh, you can see here while laying out all these children element, it has created few lines. Now if you can consider, this is first line, this is second line, this is third line. So if I want to control the vertical alignment of these elements in the line, then I will specify the align items property. Okay, now if I set align items as center, then you will see the space that is left at the bottom will be equally distributed at between top and bottom. Okay, see here in this line the elements are actually centrally aligned vertically. Okay, now if I make it extend, it would get aligned at the bottom on this line. Okay, now again these all things are impacted by how you have set the direction property, because direction alters your major axis and minor axis. All right, now these are the things that you can set at parent level. Now there are some properties that you can set at child level as well. So for example, as you can see here, all the elements are aligned at the bottom of this line. Now I don't want this general behavior on the sixth element. So at the sixth element, I can override this by saying align cell as flex start. So you can see on the sixth line, the element got vertically aligned at the top, but not on all the lines. For rest, all the elements are as it is. Okay, so this is one property that you can set at children level. Now there are orders. By default, all the elements have equal priority or order. Now if I make the order of this element, the second element as 2, you can see all the elements which are of order 1 gets laid out first, and the element with order 2, that is your second element, gets priority at the last. So this element will be drawn at the very last. Now I can have 3 categories of elements on with some different orders. So you can think order as priority. You don't have to specify order on each of the elements. By default the order is 1. So wherever you need to override, you just change the order of that specific element. Now the next interesting property is your flex grow. Now if you see here on the first line, the space is actually left at the very first, right? So I want this space to be equally distributed between these two elements. So what I can do is I will change the flex grow property as, let's say I change it only on one element. You can see here the element got stretched to occupy the free space. Okay, now if I do the same on the third element, then the free space would be divided amongst them in the ratio of 1:1. That means the ratio, I mean the free space would be divided equally amongst both of them. Okay, so this is how it works. uh, Now the flex shrink is also more or less similar as of flex grow. Okay, now say before allocating the free space, by default I want the elements to take some uh, spaces. So how do I set that? I will set flex basic as, let's say, 2. Basis, sorry, I typed basic. Now what it is doing is, the free space, from the free space it will first allocate 20% to child 1, and then rest of the space would be divided equally between children. Okay, now these are in a nutshell what you can set on this children property. So I have found one site that is very interesting, and it neatly outlines what this Flexbox can offer in graphical way. So you can refer to this site. It's very good resource, and you can check everything that Flexbox has to offer at a glance. Okay. All right. So that was it from this video. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.